Assalamualaikum everyone. Hope all of you are doing well. So, today's topic of discussion is types of communication skill. The types which we are going to discuss are very important but general types of communication skill, which are verbal communication and non-verbal communication. So, verbal communication and non-verbal communication always happens or occurs together. In simple words, they complement each other. So we can define verbal communication as the part or the type of communication in which we transmit message from one individual to another individual with the utterances, with the use of words. Okay, when we are expressing our thoughts with the help of words, it's actually verbal communication. So we can say when we use any language which is represented by words and sentences for the purpose of communication, it is known as verbal communication. And we have further subclassification of verbal communication, which is spoken and written. Spoken, when we use sounds to represent a particular symbol, and written, it's actually a script language in which you use script to represent this symbol. So the main difference between the spoken and the written is that when you represent the symbol with the sound, it's spoken, and when you use script to represent that symbol, is written communication. So starting from the very first subclassification, which is spoken or oral communication. If you want to become a part of this highly competitive world, what you have to do is to add the oral communication or engage yourself in oral communication in your daily routine. We need to define or ripen the skills of oral communication. There is a need, or it's a need of the art, to have grip on some certain qualities. Now, what are these qualities? It includes integrity, tone, volume, pace, enunciation, pronunciation. We'll start from the very first one, which is integrity. Now, what is integrity in communication process? It is actually the accuracy and the brevity. Shakespeare said that brevity is the soul of thy success. So, you need to be accurate and to the point. Your flow of communication must be very smooth, and you have to be sincere. Now, what is sincerity? In the communication process, sincerity is actually putting your 100% or giving your 100% to your communication process, and then providing the background, a proper background to the topic which you are discussing. How this integrity will help you out for in your effective communication? Actually, it will help you to create a friendly relationship with your audience and your peers and your fellows. It will also help you to have a great control on the environment. Okay, so the next quality is voice. The very first point which we have to consider in a voice is the voice should be pleasant. For example, if someone says that particular person speaks so good that I want to hear him or her all day, I don't want him to stop, it means the style of that person is so good that he know how to grab the attention of the audience. So you must also know how to grab the attention of your audience, or how to control your audience in a good, polite and pleasant way. The next thing is that the voice should be audible. For example, if you are working in a noisy environment, then you must know how to raise your voice, when to raise your voice, and how to move according to the environment and according to the situation. It means you must know how to move, how to take a next step according to the things happening around you. The last thing is proper modulation. So modulation is actually the inflection of the voice. It means the stresses should be there, the pitch should be perfect, or you must know where to rise the voice, where to fall the voice to make it more interesting. The next point is tone. So when we say that we have to control or balance our tone while speaking, while communicating, it means do not try to speak like a singer. If you want to become a good communicator, you must know how to keep your pace balanced. If I'm saying to you that just keep your pace low or slow, you don't have to become a nightingale immediately. Okay, so just try to speak in a normal pitch. Do not behave in an artificial way. So you have to keep yourself the way you are. And the last thing is delivery. So when we know how to put integrity in your communication, when you know how to control your voice, how to keep your tone while delivering your message, you must know how to deliver that deliberately. Okay, so your speech should be proper, and the very important point is that clarity should be there. If you are saying something, if you are pronouncing a word, the other person or the audience must know or can hear properly or clearly that what you are saying. The most important thing is the selection of the topic. While delivering a message or transmitting an information, there always a reason behind it, or we always have a purpose or goals while communicating or before communicating. So the quality of topic, the thing which we are going to discuss, the quality of that thing should be perfectly there. Okay, it means it is also important what you speak. So it is important what you speak, where you speak, when you speak, and how you speak. I love this line that it is widely said that you can fool many people for most of the time, but you cannot fool all the people all the time. Okay, so what you have to do is to keep your things relevant. You don't have to take the train off the track. Okay, so always be on track and discuss the good points, the points which lead or the details which lead or give the development or the progress to your topic, the main topic, or substantiate your points with clear conviction. It means the clarity should be there in your mind, so you can clear the concepts, or you can convince the audience on your own point of view with strong points and strong evidences. The next thing is enunciation and pronunciation. These two things are very interesting. So what is the main difference between enunciation and pronunciation? Enunciation means pronouncing each and every sound clearly and distinctly. Okay, it means if you muffle the sound and indistinctly, it will confuse your audience what you are saying, what is the word actually you are delivering or expressing. Okay, it actually gives thought to your pronunciation. Okay, the thing which gives thought to your pronunciation is enunciation, and pronunciation is actually the sound which you produce or which you actually give to a symbol. So pronunciation of the word should be clear and audible. So this is the main difference between these two things. And the next two things are accent or diction. There is no much difference between these two things. Okay, so accent is actually these two things are actually context driven. Okay, so accent is actually what you are saying, or you can get the style of speaking from the native speakers, and the diction is actually the selection of words or the appropriate words which you choose for the context. Now we'll discuss techniques to improve oral communication. Okay, now if you're thinking that you are a very good communicator, there is no need to improvement or improve anything in your communication process, then always remember that nothing can be perfect. There is always room for the improvement. What measures should be taken? Maintain proper eye contact, because it always makes you confident. Do not draw attention to your own drawbacks. Never apologize, never confess. Okay, there is no need to. Try to understand the audience. It means you must have the pre-knowledge of your audience. The empathy should be there. Okay, you must know the mood of your audience and the emotional attachment of your audience with the thing which you are going to discuss. The audience may not have knowledge of the subject. Okay, so prepare the topic well before you speak. A good homework should be there, and define the purpose of the speech. Collect relevant material to substantiate your talk. Do not go for the irrelevant talkies, okay? Organize your topic properly and outline the main points. Always plan your things before speaking. So, there are some general rules to become a good oral communicator. The very first thing is practice, and you all know that practice makes a man perfect, okay? So, practice. And then voluntarily participate in discussions, reading books, newspaper, journals, regularly become an active listener. You have to come out from the comfort zone of yours, okay? If you want to become a good communicator in your target language, you have to leave your hesitation behind. Just I always say that make mistakes and then learn from the mistakes, okay? So listen to the radio program in that target language. It means the language that you want to learn. And watch TV shows in that language. Always record your voice while practicing, okay? And when you will listen yourself, you will ultimately come to know about your mistakes. Then you'll rectify it, and then practice continuously and speak with the conviction. We have further types of oral communication. The very first one is formal communication, and the second one is informal communication. These two types are according to the use and the environment. If we have a serious reason behind our communication process, then our communication will be a formal communication. For example, debate, discussions, lectures, interviews, seminars, speech, group works, and etc. If we don't have any serious reason behind our discussion, our communication process, or we are just discussing things casually, then it's informal communication. It includes all the communication that we do either in a professional setup or in a social setup without any serious purpose attached to it. For example, casual greetings or private conversations, chatting, gossiping, etc. Remember this thing, informal communication is natural and it's free flow of communication without any rules, restrictions, and formality. It reflects personal touch, humility, and emotions. So here we have some benefits to discuss of oral communication. The very first one is it saves time, for sure. It's economical, powerful method of persuasion and control. Because if we have, for example, if we having one-to-one chat with the person, then we can use our facial expressions or body language to convince that person. Even if we are not having one-to-one conversation, we can use proper modulation, the rise and falls of our voice to make it more convincing. Okay, it's also help us in professional area. Tone pitch and can convey the seriousness of the message. Okay, and immediate feedback is possible. Develops a very friendly environment and helps in making friends. It's a very important tool to build public relationship. And the last but not the least, group communication is possible in oral communication. It's very easy in oral communication. And we have some drawbacks of oral communication also. The very first one is distance can be a problem in communication. It means if there is a long distance between a sender and a receiver, that they can face technical or physical barriers which can cause hindrance in their communication process. Also, the lengthy message can become boring and difficult because it's a human nature that we cannot listen to a long discussion with the good interest. The next thing is that the long retention of the message is difficult. Okay. There is no legal validity of oral communication. Feedback is sometimes based and creates misunderstanding because it's immediate. Nobody takes some or take a good time to think about the discussion, so it can cause misunderstanding or miscommunication. Barriers and filters create a lot of problem in this process. Here we have a next type of verbal communication, which is written communication. In the previous type, in the oral communication, we were talking about the utterances, okay, the words which we were expressing with the help of sound, the speech. But in written communication, we'll talk about script. Any communication that is done with the help of writing using script and follows certain rules of grammar and syntax, we can say that it is written communication. Broadly, it can be divided into two types. The very first one is professional. The professional include internal and external communication with respect to official communication, okay? And then personal, as per the use, according to the need. So there are 5 categories of written communication. The very first one is documentation. It includes application, letters, circulars, memos, telegrams, forms, questionnaires, manuals, and tenders, etc. The next one is books. Novels. It includes stories, poems, articles, essays, puzzles, and travelogues. The next category is research. It includes samples, projects, inventories, bibliographies, surveys, journal reports, theses, dissertation, and hypothesis, etc. The next thing is meeting, agenda, minutes, MOU, agreement, contract, and so on. The last one is the print media, which includes news, magazines, journal, etc. We have to follow the specific pattern in a written communication, in which we have to consider while writing that the proper introduction should be there with the relevant background information and a very brief history, and then the development of the case and the subject, a proper ending with the recommendations. We have 2 terms to discuss here: cohesion and coherence. Cohesion is actually the sequential development of the sectors. It refers to the discussion of an event or problem in a chronological manner. It means date-wise. For example, if I'm starting from the 1991, then I'll move toward the 93, then 95, then 97, 98, 99, and then so on. It means in a proper way. Then we have coherence, which refers to logical development of the subject. We don't go for the chronological order in it. Now we'll discuss some merits of written communication, which is accuracy and precision. It can be used repeatedly because we have a permanent record of it. It also has a legal validity because we have a proof of that written document and the script. Useful in case of organizational matters. Wide accessibility. Assigning jobs and responsibility is easy through written orders. More use of written communication increases one's language ability. And the last one is that it is easy to remember once you write it. But we also have some drawbacks of written communication. The very first one is time consuming. Obviously it's time consuming because if you start writing something, it will take some time. It's not economical, because if you want to write something, you'll need a paper or a pen, and if you're writing something in soft, you'll need a proper gadget or a system for it. Will not have immediate feedback. Language cannot represent the seriousness of the message in written communication. For sure, if the person is not that much expert in the selection of the appropriate word, it will not help, or he cannot express his feelings properly in the words. And then the absence of parallel language makes it more difficult to comprehend the meaning unless one is used to it. Oral communication is also more effective than written communication because we'll get the more immediate feedback. We can convince the audience more effectively in that, and so on. The next thing which we have is a non-verbal communication. Non-verbal communication is the most important part of the communication process because it includes, it is actually the silent mode of communication, which includes the eye contact, body language, the way you stand, the way you look, your dressing. It means everything which is communicating without using word. Okay, so Martin Luther King said, actions speak louder than words. Don't watch a person's mouth but his fist. Okay, So now we'll discuss some types of communication, non-verbal communication, sorry, which are not actually the general type, but some specific. The very first one is conscious. Conscious is actually the winking of eye. For example, the traffic police gestures. The next one is subliminal. It affects our mind without our knowledge. For example, if we see a police uniform, we'll get more attentive. Modeling, military attire, and etc. The third one is voluntary or involuntary messages. Communicators are unaware of their body cues. Scratching the back of your head while telling a lie, it includes or it falls in this category. We have some categories in nonverbal communication, which include signs, symbols, drawing, painting, sculptures, punctuations, Morse code, semaphore, color, graphs, paralanguage, etc. These are the different categories of nonverbal communication. The most significant category of nonverbal communication is body language. Okay, for example, how you are moving your hand, it expresses your style. How you're moving your leg, it expresses how nervous you are, and then we have a lot of examples of it. The study of body movements, facial expressions, posture, gestures, eye contact, etc. is known as kinesics. Okay, so the movement of body parts is actually kinesics. So there are various types of body language cues which are following. The very first one is emblems. Emblem is actually the study of finger movement or the hand movements. This type of body language is actually cultural bound. It means it differentiates from culture to culture. Most of the emblems are deliberate in nature. The next one is regulators. It is the study of head movements. Remember this thing that is very much important in any communication, as they regulate and maintain the flow of speech in communication. The next one is adopter. It is a study of postural change of body, stretching. For example, yawning, sitting, meditating, etc. The next one is oculesics. It is the study of eye contact. It is universal in nature. It depends upon individuals' cultural background, age, gender, and upbringing. Various positions of our eye can depict different meanings. For example, looking straight suggests direct, open, straightforward. Blunt, looking down suggests out of respect, guilt, or lack of confidence. So the meaning change from individual to individual also, or it's also have universal meaning. The next one is haptic. So haptic is actually the study of touch. It ranges from touch to cuddling, hugging, shaking, kicking, etc. The next one is proxemics. It is the study of space distancing. It refers to the distance generally we have to maintain in different situations. For example, the distance we have to maintain between a teacher and student, between friends, and etc. The last but not the least is paralanguage. It is the most important part of nonverbal communication. While speaking, we have to maintain a particular pause and space. Without these pauses, our speech becomes meaningless. In addition to that, we maintain tone, speech, voice, and modulation in our speech. These things are relevant related to what we say. So we have to consider all these things. We have to know which part of communication, which style of communication we are adopting, and how we'll mix these verbal and non-verbal communication things to make our communication process more effective. This is how your verbal and non-verbal communication participates or play an important role in your communication process. Hope you got it well. Thank you so much.